Hey guys, and welcome back to more Shadow of the Erdtree talk. Today as I make this video, we've had the 3-minute presentation drop, those gloriously packed 3 minutes of content. I made a video covering every damn scene in detail, ordering it and discussing it as best I could. But now it's time to talk about details that actually weren't in that trailer. I'm talking about images like this, showing an entirely new incantation that wasn't in the trailer. Or how we know there's going to be over 10 new bosses, 8 new weapon types. That surface area of the new zone is actually going to be larger than Limgrave. Details coming from official sources, like their website, or the interview with Miyazaki that was with Eurogamer that just released. It's the big details you're definitely going to want to know about, and probably missed if you didn't look for it. So let's get started. Now, in my first breakdown video, I did cover this very important information on the Bandai website, but I'm going to reference it briefly here. It states this: the Land of Shadow, a place obscured by the Erdtree, where the goddess Marika first set foot. A land purged in unsung battle, set ablaze by Messmer's flame. It was to this land that Miquella departed, divesting himself of his flesh, his strength, his lineage, of all things golden. And now Miquella awaits the return of his promised lord. This explanation gives us much concrete detail about the whats and whys for this DLC. We're going to the Land of Shadow, a place that Marika first entered. Did she create this place using the Erdtree? Did it always exist? Either way, she's the first relevant person that went there. And it introduces a new vital character, another child of Marika we had no idea about. Messmer, the red-headed representation of all things heresy in the lands between. The fire, the blood, the seeming frenzy-like eye, the snake and its ties to traitors in this world. This unknown character reveal seems to have had his existence ripped from the history. Was he trapped here by Marika to hide him away? And here's a question: how old is he? With the red hair and the whole Marika's my mother thing, you have to assume that Radagon's also his father. So maybe he's more like Miquella and Melania in terms of timing. Either way, we also find Miquella here at last, who had left his flesh, his strength, his lineage. He is glowing like an otherworldly being, and if he's left his strength behind, maybe he's unable to deal with things here himself. So that's why he's awaiting the return of his promised lord, which surely is our character who can become the Elden Lord. Maybe because he had to leave his strength behind to come here, he needs our help, and maybe Messmer's the main problem. Unless there's not like a bait and switch, which is possible in this game. Next, let's talk about a big one. The interview with Miyazaki, all about the DLC, filled with information lacking in that trailer. Instantly it opens up with an awesome line: "This is the biggest expansion the company has ever worked on." The DLC of these series has usually been the best parts of these games, often weaving into the story and fleshing it out, improving the original, even completing what might have been missing, like Messmer and Miquella's characters. We had hoped the DLC would be comparable in scale to original Elden Ring, obviously not as big as that, but say more than just one new zone. We get some raw details being explained here. It's set in a brand new area of a brand new map, which is a really weird way to say that. A new area of a new map. Does that suggest that this map will be used more in the future for different stuff? Maybe that's cope. It'll have a similar structure to the original game, you know, your field areas, legacy dungeons, other dungeons of varying scale. You could think of something larger than even Limgrave in the base game. It means that at a bare minimum, it's going to be bigger than one of the most dense zones specifically for content. Limgrave might not have been physically the best when compared to, say, I don't know, the lakes or the plateau region, but compared to those regions, Limgrave had such dense content. You couldn't take a step or look around a corner without seeing something interesting, something going on. So if the DLC is going to be like that and it's bigger than Limgrave, it's, you know, super dense in content, it should be awesome. Quoting him, he said, "This time we wanted to go more in depth and bring a denser, richer level design, which brings these types of layouts together a little more seamlessly. There is still of course large open areas and legacy dungeons, but we've also experimented with something a little more in between these as well, to bring a more diverse gameplay experience. Maybe the different sections you're going to go around stand out from each other a little bit less. Maybe they flow into each other in a more fluid way. Maybe there'll be less, oh look, there's a catacomb door entrance there, let me just go into the standard catacomb section. Maybe you'll just stumble into it." Alright, here's a big one. There will be over 10 new boss fights, new weapons, equipment, and skills to find. There will be 8 new weapon categories to account for new weapon types, which is insane. I thought 1 or 2 new weapon types would be interesting, but 8? new fighting styles. So if that's true, that's insane. If we look back at the trailer, we can spot a few of these things. First, we have 10 plus new boss fights, and in that trailer we can see what I'm calling the Wicker Man Giant. There's the lion monster, which seems to have 2 phases and is made of multiple things, and also obviously the main one, Messmer the Impaler. Those are 3 clear picks. After that, we have things like the Red Dancer, which makes me think of the Blue Dancer with the huge lore ties to Malenia. There's this Sentinel type, reminding me of, say, the Draconic ones, but this one's riding a Warthog or something of that nature. Is this Hippo Rhino a boss or just a big world enemy? It does have kind of an incantation attack. Or maybe this hilariously creepy guy that's riding a half decomposed horse. Well, the area he's in does make him look like he's the only big dude there, so I think maybe. We also have this nightmarish guy pulling a spike from his own head, wondering if that's like an intro to a fight. But if those were all bosses, which certainly isn't clear, then that would be 8 at least. And then also there's the various NPCs we could look at, which, you know, could or couldn't be. On the other hand, what about those 8 new weapons or weapon types? Well, within the trailer, we've seen a few. There's this gladiator type NPC with that new large sword we've not seen before. There's 2 curved swords, which aren't seemingly that unique, but they do have that new Ash style evade attack. There's these thrown daggers, which obviously have the ability to stagger enemies. This incredible melee fighter that's floating and kicking this dude, staggering him with every hit. That could be an Ash of War, or it could be a new unarmed fighting style. There's the insane minigun style crossbow that's firing out a sort of channeled barrage of fire compared to just a few fast shots. There's the dragon transformation style roar, only now with a bear horned lion thing. Probably just a new incantation though. There's the purple lightning lance of that Sentinel guy, which is very likely to be a weapon. There's the actual spear of Messmer the Impaler and the weapons we're using in that fight. The Tarnished has a shield with a spike going through it, which actually looks like it's a twin blade as a handle with a shield attached to it. You see the Tarnished try to raise and thrust with it, only to be interrupted. Or there's the twin blade he's using during the fight, which has a thin side and a thicker side. So we at least have a good showing from all that. But you know, there's still more to consider here. Via those official screenshots, we have a new incantation, not in the trailer. A bristle spike AoE shot that say that weird hippo enemy was using. We also have this incredible still of a player using a flying kick, further lending credit to the concept of maybe unarmed fighting. There's no weapon I can see in his hands, so it's either an Ash of War temporary doing this, or there is some kind of new fighting style. Outside of that, there were just a lot of really pretty images and moments to look at. I mean, look at this blue worm guy. I don't know what's going on, but I like him. So it's always nice to have some high quality images to look at, especially when we're probably going to have to rely on these for a couple months. But back to the interview. What about difficulty? Miyazaki said that the Shadow of Erdtree will be similar to the difficulty of the end of Elden Ring. So a later section of the game. It makes sense. By the time you're fighting Mogwin to even reach the DLC via the Miquella Catacomb, you're basically at the end of the game. Around the same point, you'd be ready to fight Malenia, for example. Much like Elden Ring though, they're definitely suggesting there's going to be a lot of freedom about the way you order and approach things. Miyazaki said that he wants us to feel free in how we choose and when we choose to approach these hardships, which is a big selling point for Elden Ring. If something's hard, go do something else. Come back stronger. Specifically though, he did call out Malenia, which is, you know, considered one of the hardest bosses in the original game. He said that players who look for that sort of challenge in the games will find a challenge on equal footing in the DLC as well. That hints that we will at least have comparable boss fights to Malenia, or at least one, maybe in the form of Messmer. Comically, by the way, the interviewer asked about poison swamps, and Miyazaki replied like this. In a word, yes, but this was actually a point of introspection for me after creating the base game. It was only after creating it that I realized I really like to create poison swamps. And so it was a little place of introspection and reflection for me. So maybe when players reach the poison swamp in the DLC, they will feel a little bit of this retrospection. That's great. He's become self-aware of this fact that he seems to force in poison swamps. Maybe he's been doing it without realizing. He just likes his swamps. It almost sounds like he's put this one in for the memes, but he's definitely changed how it works, so it should be interesting. Okay, one final topic to mention from the interview is the story setup. Miyazaki explained that it's the same as the base game. He worked with George R.R. Martin to create a world that the player would play in many years after the events of that world's story. So the characters and the big events were planned long ago, and this Shadow region and the characters involved, they were also from that. Miyazaki expressed that Martin did not create something new for the DLC, and this part of the story they felt would fit as an expansion. Apparently, they've been developing the DLC since the patches and updates started to settle for the original game, so it sounds like they weren't actually working on it, say in the lead up to launch, or even until after it for a bit. But yeah, that brings me to the end of all these different details we've been able to learn outside of the trailer itself. The interview was a fantastic source of really good info. So while we still have to speculate about things such as melee style combat or what's a boss and not, it's good to have proper details. For now though, I hope this was interesting. I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.